Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 277. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about creating authentic and organic connections online. This is inspired by recent events in my life. As you know, I've gone through a lot of changes in my business, changes in my focus, and it inspired me to start doing some decluttering and rethinking of how I use social media and how I use it to network and connect with people online. So I thought I would share that with you. Now, before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to new patron Debbie. And thank you so much for joining us on Patreon. I really appreciate your support. And if you have been thinking of joining us on Patreon, I would love for you to head over to patreon.com/Holly Worton and join us there. Membership starts at just $1 a month and you get exclusive access to stuff I don't share anywhere else. Also, I have finally archived the Facebook group, which means that the only place to join any kind of community with me that I'm leading is on Patreon. So Facebook is shifting to Patreon, and I would love to see you there. Now, this episode is kind of reminiscent of a couple of pieces of content I've done before that I wanted to reference here because I know I've mentioned them a lot. So back in 2015, when I was obviously going through changes in business and life, I wrote this blog post called, "Do You Feel Allergic to Social Media? This Might Be Why." And I kind of went through a description of things that I was experiencing in terms of just really feeling allergic to social media. And I had been feeling that way for about 6 months before I wrote this blog post. And I realized it was because I was going through a lot of deep inner processes and going within a lot and doing a lot of deep inner work. And that meant that I really didn't feel like being out on social media a lot and putting myself out there and being visible because I was doing so much inner work. And I was finding it really challenging to balance that sense of inner work and outer visibility. So I wrote that blog post, and that is one of my most viewed blog posts. I've got a couple of comments on the post, but I've had even more people actually write emails to me and say, "Thank you so much for that. I've been going through the same thing and I didn't understand it." And I think there's so much pressure to be visible, whether that's for business reasons or personal reasons or whatever, but social media is such a massive part of our lives now that it's been around since 10+ years. It's become a normal part of life for most people. Now, I do have some friends, I do know some people that aren't on social media at all, or who are very, very limited in how they put themselves on social media, but I think most of the people listening to this podcast are probably fairly active online. So I think it's important, if you've ever been feeling like you just don't want to be online, or you just don't want to put yourself out there, or you just haven't been either posting your own stuff or looking at other people's stuff, I think it's worth taking some time to stop and reevaluate how you use social media and how you want to use social media and why you're using social media so that you can figure out what you want instead. So that was back in 2015 that I wrote that blog post. And then earlier this year, March 5th of 2018, I produced episode 241 of this podcast, which was called "What to Do When You're Sick of Social Media." So as you can see, I've gone through some phases in my life where I'm really sick of social media. And I've always found those moments to be really confusing because social media used to be such a big thing for me. Like, my business was based around helping people learn how to use social media. So in this episode 241 of the podcast, I talked about what to do when you're sick of using social media, how to market your business instead, questions that you need to ask yourself to help you get clarity on what exactly is going on for you, how to reduce the noise of social media and the notifications that can drive us crazy, things that you might give yourself permission to do differently on social media, and how to get help with social media. And by that, I don't mean hiring a social media manager. There are other ways to get help with how you use social media. So that, I think, was a really useful episode for me and also for listeners based on feedback that I received about it. So I'm linking to both that blog post and the episode 241 in the show notes for this episode. But as usual, you can get to that episode by going to hollyworton.com/241. So here we are. I have been going through a massive social media detox and declutter. So I've been unfollowing people when I can't remember who they are or why I followed them in the first place. I have been just going through and rethinking how I post and the things that I post. So I wanted to share with you more about what exactly I've been doing in case you might want to do something similar. Because I think decluttering is really important, and I think it's a good thing to do. And I think reevaluating our strategy is a good thing to do on a regular basis. So it started on Instagram. I started going through my Instagram and realizing, of course, with the current Instagram algorithm, I don't see a lot of stuff from people that I want to see. It's become like Facebook, where they only post stuff or you only see on your feed stuff from the people that you most often engage with. And of course, that's a downward spiral because when I don't see someone's posts, I don't comment on them or like them. And so that means I see less and less of them. And so it comes to the point where I'll think, oh, I haven't heard from so-and-so in so long. And so I'll go and I'll search for them on either Facebook or Instagram. And I'll realize, oh, they've been quite active. I just haven't seen any of their posts. So I went through Instagram and I started unfollowing people and then started seeing more of what I wanted to see in my feed. And then it's kind of been a slow process. So I unfollowed a bunch of people and then did it again. And then recently, since I've made this decision to let go of my business and the business mindset stuff and focus more on my books, I've started unfollowing people that are very coachy business related because I want to disconnect my brain from that world. I have tried to stay in touch and not unfollow or disconnect from people that I know and that I am friends with, but sometimes I've made mistakes. So if I have unfollowed you, please don't take it personally. It might just be because I'm trying to disconnect from the coaching and business world. It might be because I hit the wrong button and unfollowed the wrong person. I've had to kind of unfollow and follow people because I go through these kind of fast. So I've been doing that on Instagram. Then I went to Facebook and I started unliking a bunch of Facebook pages that I just didn't want to see or unfollowing them if I didn't want to unlike them. And then today I did a bunch of that on Twitter. I did a bunch of unfollowing of people that I just thought I have no idea who these people are. I have never engaged with them. They've never engaged with me. I'm really not interested in their posts. And I unfollowed a bunch of people. And Twitter, I'm following over 3,400 people, I think, still. So there's more decluttering that needs to be done on Twitter. But it feels really good to start cleaning up my feed and start cleaning up the stuff that I see online. And I realized that I've been ignoring my feed. I will go onto Facebook and I will post my own stuff sporadically, not very often. But I do post my own stuff and I do go into groups. But I haven't looked at my Facebook feed for a really long time. Occasionally I'll just go through and like a couple things, but I really haven't been going through it. So I've not been paying attention to what other people are posting there in a long time. And same goes for Twitter. I've been even less active on Twitter, and that's a shame because I always really liked Twitter. I think I've been on it since 2007. And it's something that I always really liked. And I know a lot of people don't get Twitter, or they don't like Twitter, and that's absolutely fine. You do not need to be on every social network, but I used to really like it. And same with Instagram. I was posting a lot of my stuff, but not necessarily going through my feed and looking at other people's stuff. So I'm hoping that by decluttering my feed and unfollowing the people that are not necessarily relevant to what I want to be focusing on right now, that I will be able to keep in touch with the people I want to keep in touch with. So that's kind of one half of the decluttering I've been doing, and that's following and unfollowing other people. The other half of the decluttering I've been doing is how I've been posting on social media. And this is something that I've kind of mentioned before about how uncomfortable I was with how I was using social media, and yet I wasn't making any changes until very recently. So I've been blogging since 2006, blogging on my current website since 2011, and I have a lot of content. I mean, this is episode 277 of the podcast, I've got videos, I've got blog posts, I've got so much stuff. And I've been using, I still haven't canceled my subscription to it, but I've been using Meet Edgar for the last, since it came out, to post my content. And what I've loved about Edgar is that you upload all of your content, your posts, you have to do it manually. But once you've got the old stuff in there, you can create feeds to kind of grab the new stuff. So it's a great way to have a catalog of all your different types of social or your content so that you can share it on all your different social networks. And it's a really, really fantastic system if you've got a great catalog of content. However, I found that I was totally reliant on Edgar to post a ton of stuff on social media, and I wasn't actually going on there to engage with people. I think mainly because I was feeling kind of that extended allergy to social media. So I got to the point where I was doing exactly the thing that I would teach people not to do when I was helping people with social media, and that is automatically posting a bunch of crap and not actually being social, not actually using social media to engage with people in a social manner. And I felt really bad about that. But like I said, I didn't do anything to change it until this week. I finally got rid of the vast majority of the kind of posting times on my calendar and Edgar. And I only left the podcast stuff because the podcast is kind of the core of what I do. And I still want to get that out there, especially the old episodes, which I think are really, really good. So I've left the podcast. That may change, but I removed all the old blog posts that were going out, all the old videos and stuff that just wasn't relevant. And what's kind of triggered me doing that was that some old video or comment or something of my blog post had posted on my Facebook page. And then I saw someone comment on it and I thought, oh my God, that's totally not relevant to what I'm doing now. I need to get rid of that. And so I just went into Edgar, and at first I started deleting a lot of the content, and then I thought, no, that's not what I need to be doing. I need to just deleting when that content posts. So, like I said, that was the second half of my decluttering, and I have to say it feels so good. And I feel like I'm moving back towards a more authentic, organic way of using social media. I actually went on Twitter and posted 2 just updates, comments, stuff yesterday that were totally unrelated to content. And I feel like because I was following all the social media experts for so long, and because I was so focused on using social media to market my business, I got so businessy with it and so automated with it, and I just stopped being social. And I really, really look forward to using it for social purposes in the future. And it just feels better. It feels like a giant weight has been lifted off of me because, again, I wasn't comfortable with how I was using social media by pushing all that content out there. And because I really liked meeting people on social media, and I really liked using it in that way. So I'm looking forward to going back to that. Now, another thing that I decluttered that I haven't mentioned is I kind of removed myself from a lot of Facebook groups that I just wasn't using. I went in, I looked at the list, and I thought, well, if I'm not active in this group, why am I in there? I've removed myself from a bunch of groups. There are probably some more that I could remove myself from, but I haven't done it yet. I kind of like to do these things in phases, kind of like peeling off the layers of an onion, getting rid of the stuff that I know isn't right for me, and leaving the stuff that I'm not quite sure about, and then going back and doing another clear out in the future. So this is something that you might want to do on a regular basis. I mean, I think the smartest thing, for me at least, to do would be to go through this stuff on a quarterly basis, reevaluate how I'm using social media and reevaluate all the people that I'm following. So that's something I would need to get into my system if I decide that's what I want to do. I do think reevaluating the stuff on a quarterly basis seems logical, and it seems like it's something that would work for me. So think about what might work for you. Is this something you'd want to do on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, once a year, twice a year? What works for you? Maybe just do it once, go through one cycle of it and see how that feels, and then go with your gut in terms of when you need to do it again. But maybe put a reminder in your system to let you know to think, do I need to do this again or not? Otherwise, time can go by and it just gets all so cluttered, and we get to that point where we're feeling allergic of social media because we don't like what's happened to our social networks because we haven't been kind of weeding the garden. So now that I've done all this decluttering, I think the next logical step is, what do I want to do instead? What do I want to do with social media? And this goes back to posting organic tweets on Twitter, creating more lists of different types of people so that I can kind of go through feeds of different lists and, retweet people that I think are tweeting interesting things and make sure that I see the content that I want to see. On Instagram, that's mostly just sharing podcast episodes and pictures of my walks. That might change in the future, but that's pretty much all that I've ever done with Instagram. I never got into automatic posts on there. I don't even know if there are any apps that allow you to do that. And that's one thing that I think I've liked about Instagram, is that it's often very fresh content rather than recycled old crap that people are just pushing out there. And Facebook. I'm probably going to go through another declutter of my Facebook groups that I'm in and unfollow some pages and reevaluate my experience there. One, I think it's a Chrome plugin that you might find useful for Facebook. It's called FB Purity, and that can help you completely redesign your Facebook feed. So you can do it so that you see all updates. You can do it so you don't see those colored backgrounds that I know a lot of people don't like. You can customize so many things for your Facebook, and I have found that really useful for the times that I do go through my feed to make sure that I see the things that I want to see. So FB Purity, and I will link to that in the show notes. A word of caution, when you go to the FB Purity website, it looks like a crappy old website that was designed in 1999. It's really old looking, but it's something that I've been using for years and I trust it, and I would not see any reason to not use it. I just wanted to let you know that because, again, I tend to not trust websites that are old and ugly. I don't know whether that's right or not, but it definitely makes me think twice about downloading something if their website looks like it was 20 years old. So that's kind of my plan moving forward. And I wanted to share these thoughts with you and these things that I'm doing so that you can perhaps reevaluate how you want to create authentic and organic connections online. I absolutely want to stay in touch with the people I want to stay in touch with, and I don't want their stuff to be crowded out by people and posts and things that I'm no longer interested in, or that I'm actively trying to stay away from because I'm trying to shift my brain from business to writing and from coaching to writing. And for you, this may also involve letting go of some of the social networks that you're on. As I said earlier, and this is something that I always used to teach when I helped people with social media, is you do not need to be on every single network, even if you're using social media to market your business. Find the ones that you like and focus on that. Do you hate Twitter? Don't go on Twitter. Do you hate Facebook? Then don't go there, even though it seems like everyone is on there. Do what feels right for you, because when you're using social media in a natural, authentic way that feels like fun to you, then it's going to be so much more effective. So think about, are there any social networks that you might want to declutter? And you could just be as much as posting a last post saying, look, I'm not going to be very active on here. You can find me on here and here, and then just let it go. Or it might be more extreme. You might be closing down a Facebook group, or I just archived my Facebook group and moved everything over to Patreon. Go with what is right for you. And if what the internet marketing people are saying is right and good and true, and if that doesn't feel right for you, then don't do it. Just do what feels right for you. And I really believe that when we use these tools more naturally in ways that feel good to us, it's going to be so much more effective. And right now, not necessarily using social media to promote my business, because my business is not really happening, because I'm focusing on my writing. And I'm also not using social media that much to share about my writing. Occasionally, I'll put an update of how many words I've written on my book, but I'm not even doing that strategically. So I'm just moving back to using it organically as it feels natural, and that's going to evolve. So that's all for now. I knew this was going to be a slightly shorter episode because there's not a ton that I have to say on this topic. However, it's something that I wanted to share with you because right now the stuff that I'm blogging about and sharing about is all about what's going on for me. And I'm doing that because whenever I do these things, talk about this stuff, I get really good feedback from people who are going through the same thing or similar things. So that is all for now. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and get in touch. As I said before, I would love for you to join me on Patreon. If you head to patreon.com/hollywharton, you can join me there. That is all for now. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/277 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.